factions have signed a new peace deal to immediately halt the violence ravaging the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Neither rebels nor the government are confirming
in
the
border region between North and South Sudan.
Somalia's transitional government says it's making some progress.
Women who survived the mass rape of hundreds of women by rebels in eastern Congo last month have begun describing the horror of their experience.
Bana 2004 siko nazokende 8 ans ngo so mbule silo tobana nazokota na 8 ans. Ko ino ni sangi pona na mboka. Poka na zengina ba problem na mboka na biso ya ngona ilo respect na ya na mboka ro na zengina problem na mboka biso.
A majority of people in this country don't really understand about asylum seekers, don't understand why people are forced to come here, why they're forced to flee here. And I think if people in this great country of ours had a better understanding of why asylum seekers came here, the horrendous journeys that they've had to undertake, what they've suffered in their own countries, what they've had to leave, I think that in itself would engender a greater feeling of respect and dignity towards those people.
It needs a lot of very clear individual stories to show the courage that it takes to leave your own country and leave everything behind and come and seek asylum somewhere. And particularly now when the numbers of people coming to seek asylum in the UK are the lowest they've been for over 20 years, it should be possible for us to start doing something to tell the truth about why people come to the UK and what they have to contribute.
The other issue that relates to dignity is, I think, getting the facts about why refugees flee their countries, that they are escaping persecution and why they come to the UK, and to educate public opinion and decision makers about conflict, about human rights violations and the real reasons why refugees come to the UK.
Well, specifically in relation to reporting, I think there's a number of clear logistical obstacles and issues that they encounter. I mean, at the most basic level, the level of support that they receive, the financial support they receive, even when they're on Section 95 support, is not overly generous, and there really isn't any additional money to spend on transport to get you to the reporting centre. For people on Section 4, that situation's even worse. They don't receive cash. They're usually supported by, they usually receive their support through the Azure payment card, which means that they don't have cash to spend on bus fares.
2 years ago I did some research called Down and Out in London, and I focused on destitute refused asylum seekers who were trying to exist in as best a way as they possibly could. And everything was a struggle, from finding a place to stay, to finding something to eat, having contact with other people, but certainly not having any cash to travel meant that having to walk huge distances either to meet up with people or, as you say, to go to the reporting centre. And this is obviously a very, very difficult thing for people to do, but in my experience, a lot of people did still manage to do it, no matter how difficult it was. And it's just one of the facets that makes this kind of destitution so difficult for people to cope with, and why, particularly for people who have not in a position to go home, it is so deeply unfair.
There are physical difficulties to reporting. People who are elderly or have a disability, pregnant women, women with young children. I mean, these all pose challenges to getting to the reporting centre, particularly if you don't have money for a taxi or to get the bus. In addition to some of those problems, there is the very real fear that you will be picked up and detained when you go to report, which is terrifying for a lot of people, and as a consequence they might choose not to report. The consequence of not reporting can be very severe. It can result in your support being withdrawn.
Ba stress latanga donc mais comment on sala nga ba mitu pasi ba nini donc na banga ka problème so mwana kei boye motema na ngeza ka bien te surtout ceux qui n'avaient pas signé lobby na la na pongite motema ka ko donc ils ont panza na ka ils ont panza si o mwana ka so na ke kuna ceux qui n'ont na bimite motema na ngeza bien te na mwana ka neti ba kanganga neti ceux qui ba ko refulenga po mbonga la biso donc eza malamu te ndenge bazolia batu ndenge bazoboma batu bazovioler batu donc pasi ka eza na mboka la biso donc motema yange mona ka neti bakanga bazongisaka donc nga na kokozonga na mboka nete parce que mboka eza malamu te na wana luku bank sanga ngona ko signer wana ndenge nakenda ko signer na nyonso eza malili eza nini donc ozokende kaka po na tike kuta eza te mwa lem soko luka mta peso tike bo tike eza te aucune lem so na église ka ba ser bazo kongola ba mbongo bazo kokiselo tike po ke no signer ke pe signer bo mwa ka ko banga po signer bino motema kiti.
I don't feel that it's necessary. I think it frustrates many individuals who are in the asylum system, who are in the wider immigration system. I think it breaks down the trust between UK Border Agency and individual going to report. That trust is essential, or that relationship is essential, should I say.
I've been working at the Refugee Council for kind of 4.5 years now, and I've never really understood the whole issue of reporting centres. I've travelled around the country, I've met so many asylum seekers, and one of the things that's made their life so difficult and so unbearable has been the reporting centres, has been the difficulty to get there, has been the way that they've been treated when they get there. And really, I can't really see why it's so important to do that. Yes, we need to know where people are, but the regularity and the distance that people have to travel. I think the regulation states that it's as the crow flies, but not as you can actually get there. It just seems it's another example of an inhumane, uncaring approach. And I think we could have a far more flexible and humane approach to knowing where asylum seekers are.
So it's a clear argument. The reporting centre is just a waste. There's no need for it. People reporting, they don't need that. So why are they going to have that? And there's no need for it. It's just wasting. There has been some very good position from the authority by closing detention for children. That was another wasting money. There was no need for it. So the authority is improving. We like them to take care of this country, care of the society, dignity of the people, asylum seeker, British, and anyone in this country. They deserve to be respected, which we understand Britain has been doing very, very well for years. So there's no argument to come in a position to disagree. There's no need for reporting centre. It's just a waste.
Parce que talaka na mboko so oza na support moko te oza na esika kolala te ozaka moto apasi na mboko ti po oza na esika kolala te ozolalalaka mpe ya bato lelo olali awa lobi olali awa le moso omona olali mpe boye moto yango alembi yo abi te lelo na ndako nanga te luka place na yango otelemi okangi ko babisaka no kaka obimi oke koluka su place mosusu obeti porte pa mosusu olali.
Destitution is a real problem, I think there are probably two main reasons why destitution occurs within the asylum process. The first being the issue of eligibility. So this relates to the withholding or the withdrawal of support according to your status within the asylum process. So for example, you can't even access support until your asylum claim is recorded by the border agency. And then of course your support will be terminated once your claim is refused and your appeal rights are exhausted. And then there's the eligibility around destitution. So you have to obviously prove that you're destitute in order to be able to access support.
In a lot of cases, the border agency does not get the decision to refuse asylum right. Many cases are overturned on appeal, and that is one route to destitution for people. And I think the cutbacks in legal aid, which will have an effect on asylum seekers, because it will be very difficult for people to find lawyers, particularly with several of the big organisations that provide legal advice going under. I think that's why you're finding an increase in destitution, which is so very, very difficult for people, and is, in my experience and the research I've done, it leaves people feeling mentally ill, demoralised and de-skilled.
I mean, I think there's some immediate things. I think we should let asylum seekers be able to work. I think they should be able to work with dignity and use the skills that they have. I think we should have a decent level of safe, secure accommodation for asylum seekers. But above all, I mean, I think I would like to see the government listen to asylum seekers, ask that very question of asylum seekers, what's important to them, and to actually have a system in this country that's built around the needs of asylum seekers, so that we can have a quick, efficient system for deciding whether someone can stay in the country, and that system is actually built around the needs, the desires, the expectations of asylum seekers. That would strike me as a really good place to start.
I think if you want respect in the asylum system, I think then we need to be giving people the opportunity to lead a dignified life while they're waiting for decisions to be made. And I think that involves providing asylum seekers with a sufficient level of support that they can actually live on for a reasonable period of time and provide for their essential living needs. And that shouldn't be any less than 70% of income support. I think that's an absolute minimum. I also think that it is one of the things that allows people to live with dignity is that they can support themselves, and therefore if decisions aren't made promptly within 6 months, then asylum seekers should have the right to apply for permission to work and to be able to support themselves and their families.
I think we need to be reminding the government very strongly about the justice and human rights issues, reminding them of their obligations under national, European and international law, and using legal challenge where necessary. And that's something that Refugee Action does, is we support legal challenges where appropriate, but we have to understand that that does occasionally put individuals at risk, and it's important not to be, I suppose, exposing people to any more harm in the process.
The whole system needs to change and to have a human rights and fair focus, so that people who are in need of protection and deserve protection in this country actually get it, and don't end up in a situation where they're having to live from hand to mouth, relying on friends and communities to get by for their everyday needs. I think that's what really seriously needs to change, and so that we don't have a system where people don't have money to go and report.
The way to do that, ask those people, for example, to do some jobs. Ask them to work, give them work permit, they'll pay tax, and there will be a signatures. For example, we want to make sure Okito is in this country today. When I go to work, I'll sign. The person I work with can use the telephone at the code home office, Okito was here today. There's no need for me to report. They can even do some volunteer jobs. They can come to the Refugee Council, Kongo Support, UK Citizen, different organizations, where the Home Office have a credible relation with them. They will make sure that those people been there. And then they will call the Home Office, this person is been working all day as a volunteer today. And there's no need for those people to go report. And when they work as a volunteer somewhere, they will give them transport. So it's going to reduce pressure to the authority paying the monies. So the economy, where we've been spending money, giving those people for no reason, is going to come back to the economy.
En tout cas, ba okela biso mawa, po ba la kaki biso mikanda. To kotisi ba papier, ba pesi biso ba forme ba lobi ke bato ba umeli na mboko yo, ba opesa bango mikanda. To kotisa ba papier, to tinda ba photo, ti lelo neti ngai na tinda ba photo. Ti lelo na batinde nga mukanda te. O foko ke na Liverpool, na sina kepe na Liverpool, batinde la nga mukanda na ba okela biso mawa. Toza na passe, tozo vivre na passe.